Hello and welcome to my show Conversation with Priya. I'm your host Priya Mishra, and today I have a very special guest, Mr. Peter Pry. He's the director of Hall Chadwick. Hall Chadwick is one of the largest and most experienced accounting group in Australia, servicing clients in every major capital city and many regional centers in Australia. Nationally, Hall Chadwick is an association of independent firm that can combine the experience and skills of many partners and staff. Our director today is also very much associated in a different country, and they are actually in action since 2016. If I'll talk about Mr. Pry, he has been in as a profession by accountant for 40 years now. And he grew up in Melbourne in 60s and a relatively modest home. Now he lives with his children and his wife in Melbourne, and he's actually operating his entire office from the Melbourne, but he is very active in India and US and other global part of the country. In 2000, he commented my current role, initiated as a CEO accountant with Chadwick, and developed a skill set in assisting foreign companies establishing in Australia, and over time develop different strength and network group to help businesses to come here in Australia and help them, handhold them to take their journey in Australian market. I have always admired him. He's a very fulfilled, achiever. And he actually loves, if I see his a personal side, had outside interests, committee boards, charities, he also made strong interest in family history and golf. So today, help me to welcome Mr. Peter Pry from Hall Chadwick. Hello, Peter. Thank you for joining in and welcome to my show, Conversation with Priya. How are you doing today?
I'm good, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting my request, and it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on my show. I would like to start with a very interesting question, which I know many people would have been asked you. How did it started? Your company, your journey as in your finance area, how this all story started?
Okay. So I've been an accountant by trade. I don't do much accounting these days for 40 plus years. Okay. I've been with Hall Chadwick where we are for the last 20 plus years. Prior to that, I've worked in industry, other professional, even had my own practice and the public service. When I joined Hall Chadwick, or its predecessor firm, I basically came on as the firm's accountant and CEO. I fell into international work where we were looking after companies coming into Australia. Over time, we started to develop an interest in India. Essentially, we were doing some back office work via India, and we saw the size of the market there. For the last 8 years, we've been trying to develop that market, probably been backwards and forwards half a dozen times. At this time of year is the time I'm normally there, so my Facebook memories are always full of traffic photos and other photos from India. And that's been relatively successful. It's a long journey, but we've been, you're never going to get instant results. But it's, so that's the journey of where we are now.
Right. So you started as an accountant, and then you way up, and you are now founder of the company. I mean, you are also the part of the company now. You are partner, or you?
I'm a director of the company. So, as well as the India, I'll look after the IT, the HR. I've just handballed all the systems. Right. Oversee the administration. Oversee staff about 12. So it keeps me busy.
Very interesting. So in your journey, and from here to India, how was your experience? I know you are actually very active in India and also, of course, Australia. I heard you are also active globally, so you help businesses go global.
Yeah, so we've been helping businesses globally for the last 20 years. Our firm has always had a strong international affiliation. With offices all around the world. The only rule we run by there, if I've got someone looking to do something, say in Brussels, I'm not going to refer him to the Prime Global member in Brussels unless we've actually met him.
Right.
So we attend a lot of the international conferences and that sort of stuff, basically to build up those relationships. So if I'm going to refer to the accountant in Brussels, I'll only refer to him if we've built some form of relationship and I've got a level of understanding.
Sure.
So yeah, we've been doing that for a long time, and it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Right. But for international market, you need like global cultural understanding as well to build that, business, and not just building the business or creating a company. It goes way beyond than that, helping people on the ground level to actually start walking on the zone they or the area or the country they choose to go to.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy, entire process is not easy, and there are a lot of understanding gap as well, because from when people are used to, say for example, I'm used to of Australia, and I'm going to US, I need to adapt to the new legislation, new process, new everything.
And the last thing people always ask us is the tax advice or that sort of thing. The advice they want first, people coming into Australia, is they want contacts. They want, who do we contact? What do you know about the jewellery industry? I'm doing something with the jewellery at the moment. What contacts have you got? What research can you give us on the industry? And the same goes when our clients are going overseas. The tax and accounting is important, but it's the second thing they want. The first thing they want is introductions. They want to have someone on the ground over there who can do the same as we do, hold their hand through the process. And that's what we facilitate.
Right. And like people say, your network is your net worth. So
it is.
That True. Helps a lot. And I've been talking to you for a while now. We met in Angie Chamber, but our journey has been also together quite very interesting. I heard, like, I really admire your philosophy. You always talk about, own your own mistakes, like people are going towards doing X amount of act. It can actually lead to different mistakes, different errors, different failures. And then I would like to hear more about it. I was really fascinated by your philosophy there.
Okay, so we all make mistakes.
Yes.
We all do it. So if you make a mistake, own up to it straight away. One of the things I've always lived by is my honesty or my integrity. So if you're honest, you make a mistake and you own up to it, people believe you. They understand. They have a greater trust in you. If you don't own up to it, you're losing the trust. So owning your mistakes, we all make mistakes. The idea is you learn from them. And the philosophy I have with my team, if you make a mistake once, you know what? It's part of the learning process. You make a mistake twice, it can happen. If you make a mistake third time, either I haven't taught you properly or you're not understanding it. But
right. So, I mean, of course, if you're not learning from your mistake, and it can also lead to everywhere, like, whether you are starting a business or your life journey or your relationship, it happens everywhere, right? So it's a very, very interesting, how do people think that, there are so many people are scared of doing mistake. How would you lead to them?
It's a hard process. You've just got they've got to understand. You try and let them know that that's how you build integrity. Your reputation's what I hang my hat on. So if people can believe everything you say is honest, and you own your mistakes when they happen, then you've got a greater level of trust and integrity. I think the other thing that comes out of that is what I call know what you don't know. So if I don't know the capital gains tax issue arising out of the sale of that home in India, I'm not going to advise on it. I'm going to tell whoever it's not my area of expertise. I will speak with someone who knows more about it and we'll come back to you. But don't pretend to know what you don't know.
And that's where a lot of people do mistake, because I believe it's insecurity, or it might be some kind of a fear lead to them that, they don't want to let things go and they want to keep them happy. But if you're not aware of something, then be upfront to say
That's
that,
right.
I don't know, but I know somebody who knows. I can guide you through.
As you said before, you have a good network. If you've got that network, and people respect that they've engaged you as a specialist in whatever area you're in, and you're not going to know everything outside that area. So if you don't know, I'm not a specialist in that area. I'm not qualified to give the advice on that. I can tell you broadly, but let me speak to someone who knows the area properly, and I'll come back to you with definitive advice.
Right. And I always believe if you are offering advisory, it has to be in your area of expertise, not where you are not confident in, or you half knowledge is not good anyway, right? So that's my, I always like that approach and your integrity concept. Like, if people don't have a business in integrity in the business, they are not being honest. They are not being honest with their own people and the working there. So how do you lead your customer to believe in you when they start brand new? So because they have a lot of questions, they have a lot of insecurity when they come to the new country, new process. How do you actually ask them and let them believe in you to entire process?
Look, especially when you're dealing with overseas customers, your first two meetings are get to know you. That's all they are. You might gather a bit of information, but both sides of the equation are getting a feel for each other. Do I trust this person? Is this person believable? So, providing you're always honest, it'll come through. There'll be some who don't want to deal with it. Well, that happens. But so your first one or two meetings, especially, are just about that get to know you factor. Am I comfortable dealing with this person? And as long as you understand that, and that things aren't going to happen on the first meeting, you'll always be good.
And isn't it is vice versa? Like, you trust me, I trust you, because it's like I also, if I'm offering a service to somebody, it's long-term relationship.
It is.
So if you are offering that long-term relationship, you also need a right person in the team, right? And it's a teamwork, right? Any process is a teamwork. So if we don't trust each other, then it's not gonna be very healthy environment to work with anyway.
No, so you need to have that trust and respect for each other. And as I said earlier, that takes a long time to build up. As I said, in the India market where we've been working that for 6 or 7 years, 8 years. A lot of that time is building up those relationships, and they don't form instantly. You've got to nurture them over time.
Right. And I always say it's, my slogan is, let's create evangelists for you. But before that, let's build trust, And so you can't build trust before, creating the evangelist. You can only advocate whom you trust. That,
That's
if
right.
I'm going to give my client to Priya, or Priya can give her client to me, then of course it has to come from our relationship, mutual trust, and that has to be exchanged to the next party for sure. When it comes to, your company is all about more finance and setting up company, and also, do you also help people to go in a revenue growth model?
It's not my cup of tea. It's not my area. I have some people, including the likes of you, that will work with. So, as I said earlier, a lot of it's about contacts. So as far as the growing the revenue side, say for the jewellery thing we're looking at the moment, we'll introduce them to someone who's strong in the marketing in that area to help them out on the ground in Australia.
And that's very interesting, because that's, again, it comes back to your previous approach that you actually created your own network people where people can reach out to you. So the people who wants to reach out to you, they will be reaching out through you. How do you get your client, or how do people find you?
Normally by referral.
Mm-hmm.
So it can come through. We're a member of various overseas chambers who we see quite a lot. So it'll come from there. Could come from our network of accountants around the world, or it can come from a referral of a client we've had brief dealings with. I had one client in, he was out of Pittsburgh, I think.
Right.
And I said, where did you get us from? He goes, my accountant referred. My accountant gave me your details. Oh, what's your accountant's name? He told us the accountant's name. Never heard of him. And we hunted through our records and we found that accountant had sat through a 10-minute interview with another client about 2 years ago, and he remembered our name. So every interview you do or every meeting you do is a marketing exercise. Make in 3 years, yeah.
Yeah, that brings to my our last communication when we were a couple of weeks ago when we were chatting. We were talking about that how any relationship you build today, it might not be giving you the instant outcome, right? It might not be giving you referral today or tomorrow, but it might turn out a long-term relationship can bring something from out of somewhere you don't even think or imagine of. So keeping the relationship is so important with the people who are not giving you today, isn't it?
It is. I was at a networking seminar, or one of those networking functions we all go to, and this young kid, I call him a young kid, he was probably about 25, came up to me and said, "Hey, how many sales you made today?" I said, "Beg your pardon? How many sales you made tonight?" I said, "Tonight's not about making sales. Tonight's about meeting people, building the trust, building the relationship, and hopefully out of tonight, there'll be a few people there that we meet, we start a relationship with, and once the trust is developed, then some work might flow, but nothing happens instantaneously. You've got to build the trust and respect."
Yeah. So is it fair to say that your style of doing business is more influential than actually hardcore sales?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you influenced me on many ways, to be honest. We have been, not directly we are working towards, but we have been working towards on the chamber side. So
Yes.
It's been an interesting journey. We met a lot of good people on a different
We do.
occasions.
Yes.
And a lot of people admire you in the chamber itself, and they always talk about it, and it reflects the kind of personality you are, and the work and the help support you bring. The people you are sharing your knowledge is the biggest gain what I have found so far.
I want to hire you as my sales manager.
Pleasure. But yeah, I have been finding that very interesting approach. I am a very sharp observer, so I like to observe, and I always notice what exactly you do in the process when we are, meeting instantly. Last time when we were doing you were doing the presentation in the ANG chamber, you have actually talked about how India and Indian can actually approach an Australian market. Would you like to shed some lights on that?
Look, the first thing I'll tell anybody from overseas, whether it's India or America or wherever, if you're going to come to Australia to do business, it's not the same as India or America. Come here, get your feet dirty is what we always say. Get a feel for the culture, get a feel for the way we do business in Australia. We can tell you till the cows come home all about the culture and doing business in Australia. But you're far better off to spend the money, come out here, meet the key players, and you'll get a far greater feel for the culture and the way of doing business in Australia. I think I've spoken a number of times about the differences, and there are strong cultural differences between India and Australia. Even though we both speak English, in in both countries, whenever I am in India, I always have an Indian with me because the accents are often so strong, and I didn't understand. And it's the same when an Indian speaking English comes here. People tell me I've got a broad Australian accent. I find that hard to believe, but they struggle sometimes with their broad Australian accent. So if they've got someone they trust with them, it just helps them through the process. They can walk out of the meeting and say, "I didn't understand that," and it's all explained. So wherever you go, you make sure you have that trusted advisor with you on the ground.
When I first arrived, yes, I did struggle in my first week, but then I literally started spending a lot of time watching, Australian music, listening Australian radios and all. And like wherever I was going, either I'm listening radio or watching YouTube or watching movies or something. And it took me 2 weeks. I always believe you have to put the effort. If you really want to be accommodated, you need to put that effort to that,
You do.
A lot of people come, talk about it, that, it's hard, this and that. And the year passed, they are still complaining the same thing. And I always question that is how much you put your own effort.
Yes.
Right. And it goes to the other way around. Like a lot of time when I used to make call, I still sometimes struggle. The other side, people on the phone, in the call center support and all, they don't understand. And I always believe we are living in a multicultural country. We all should know how to put the effort to actually support each and every one.
You do. Yeah. And you need to take the time to understand the culture. The way we'll speak to a woman in Australia is far different to the way you speak to a woman in India. In India, I've just got to get used to the fact that my name's Mr. Peter. It's not Peter, Mr. PRYN, it's Mr. Peter. But it's those little things, you just get used to it.
Yeah. And a lot of time, Aussie always, when I introduce to my team member, they always say sir and ma'am. And they said, no, you can call me, by my name. And they are not able to change their habit. So I say, just leave it like that. Don't worry.
Look, I always say with any new client, it's Mr. Smith or sir or ma'am until they say, call me Bob. Until then, it's sir or ma'am or Mr. Smith or whatever. And I've always pushed that with my team. It's address them formally until they tell you it's okay to call them by their first name or their nickname or their shortened name.
And it's fair to say that it's understanding the culture context is very important if you are working in an international aspect and international market, I believe.
It is, yeah.
What would you say to conclude? How, what will be your 2 cents advice for the people who wants to start in a place to the B place, especially for people who are coming from, from overseas to Australia? What will be the 2 cents for them to be prepared for this particular market?
One's a very general one. It's names. Just whenever you're going into a meeting, learn the names of the people you're meeting with and make sure you don't forget them. Nothing worse than forgetting Priya. Nothing worse than forgetting. And people respect the fact that you've taken the name, you've taken the time to remember their name. Look them in the eye. Too often I see people talking like this. They're reading something else or they're playing on their phone. When you're talking with somebody, whether it's Australia or overseas, eye contact. That's how you build the trust and relationship.
Yeah.
And no matter what meeting you're going into, do your research. Don't go unprepared, not knowing anything about the company. Or if they've sent you a 10-page blurb, take the time to read it. Nothing more annoying than a prospective client has sent you a 10-page blurb telling you all about the company. And you start asking questions about if you'd read the document was on page 3 or 4.
Right, right. Very, very interesting. So before we close, you are very active on LinkedIn. People can reach out to LinkedIn, other social media, and of course your website, right?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So all the details will be given below in the description. And thank you so much for joining in today, Peter. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.